Thank you for joining us for this episode of That Solo Life, the podcast for PR pros, marketers, and communicators who work for themselves. People like me, Michelle Kane with Voice Matters, and my wonderful, ever steady co host, Karen Swim, of the group that brings us all together, Solo PR Pro. Hey, Karen, how are you today?
Hello, Michelle. I'm doing great. Thank you. How are you?
Doing all right, doing all right. We're still in the frozen tundra of this never ending winter. And as of this recording, when we are recording this, it is Groundhog Day. And of course, that lovely little rodent, of course, he's calling for more winter. How could you not? We've had nothing but winter this winter.
Yes, and we all knew that before the groundhog told us, so we were sort of braced for it. I think maybe this year we were just hoping that it would be different news so that we could say, okay, um, none of the forecasts are right, and it's not going to be cold forever. But
And that's sort of an allegory for our times, isn't it?
I feel like we're having the winter that tracks for this entire year. Like,
Is
yeah,
it, is
this
it a
this is about right. This is exactly the backdrop that fits the times that we live in.
Was it Shakespeare? I'm probably gonna get this totally wrong. Is this the winter of our discontent?
Yes, there you go.
But that brings us to our topic today. We definitely want to address with everything that is going on in our country, and, the people are speaking up. We're gonna cover what this means for your clients, what this means for corporations. When is silence the biggest risk? So we're just going to navigate that a little bit because again, we say this time and time again as communications professionals, it is really our professional and ethical duty to be leading the conversation on this, because while it's certainly a time for clarity, nuance always plays a part. And to do that with the most impact does take thought and really measured planning.
Yeah, it's a really interesting arc of
Mm.
communications because during COVID is when there emerged this new direction and more intentionality about corporations being citizens of
Yes.
the places that they serve. Now, while that's always been true, it has not always equated to activism or advocacy, but COVID shifted things. And so we began to really strengthen frameworks and decision grids to guide companies in when to respond to external events and when not to respond. So that continues to evolve, right? Like, because remember in the old days, sometimes the advice was say nothing.
Right. Right. Say nothing. And now there's a certain expectation. And, it's not about taking sides necessarily. Not that I'm
Mhm,
going to wade into both sidism, because what
mhm.
is happening around us right now, there's certainly a heavy morality to it. But it's really just for companies to understand this new landscape and the expectations around their company voice. I mean, there's we expect it from Ben and Jerry's because they've led with that as part of who they are. But, you know, if you're just a company that makes copiers or something, it's like, do we have to weigh in? Well, because you think your first audience is external, but your first audience are the people that come either to your building every day or who log on every day, your employees.
Yeah, so there were two things that happened as of this recording. There is the Minnesota ICE incident, and then there was a coalition of CEOs organized by the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce that got together and put out a statement. which was critiqued. And I think that PR News did some great articles on both of those situations, and we will, of course, have links in our show notes. And I think that something that was pointed out that's really important for us as professional communicators to remember, there is advocacy and there's activism.
Right.
Every company may not have to be involved in activism, but advocacy really does cover your internal people. And so I would hope that companies always lead with their guiding principles, their vision, their values, their mission. I am fairly certain that every corporation values their employees and wants to create safe spaces for them, wants to make them feel heard and seen, and wants to respect them. And
Right.
I can share some examples of when that doesn't happen and how that then affects your external customers. So, if you live in Minnesota and you're a Minnesota company, as Michelle brought up, it doesn't matter if you are a dairy farm or a copier company. You have people that live there and are absolutely impacted by the events that are happening. And that's not a political position, because it doesn't matter how you feel about what's going on, you're impacted because you live there and these protests and this is happening. So, I mean, you talked about nuance, Michelle, and right into it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the goal isn't to make a bold statement, it's to just make sure that your people know what's up, essentially, right? And especially when we have small businesses to large companies with people afraid to leave their homes because of this behavior. And how I mean, you thought with COVID we were afraid to leave the house? Yeah, it impacts everything. It impacts morale. It it's I mean, really, it gets to your basic humanity, whether or not you are, and maybe this is a bold statement, I don't know, whether or not you're gonna do right by the people that you rely on to carry out the everyday tasks that keep your corporate mission afloat. So, and that doesn't necessarily need to be a statement, but I mean, you order in pizza for every other silly occasion. Maybe that's as much as making sure s- employees who are at risk have food for the night. I- it's just
Yeah.
thinking through all those things because, whether or not we like it or want it or don't want it, it's here. And so we really need to deal with it as carefully and responsibly as possible, and I think never losing this sight that we are all fellow human beings in this. And, if you're sitting at the top of the C-suite, that is a lot of responsibility. It really is.
It is, and I know that there are probably there are people that feel like companies don't have that responsibility for their
Right.
employees' mental health and well-being.
Right.
However, even if you are just profit-minded, your profits will suffer if your people are suffering. So, we're not suggesting that you
Mhm.
have to hold in-house therapy sessions, but you should at least acknowledge the things that are impacting both your internal audiences and your external. And when your people feel heard and cared for and know that their employer understands that they are a whole human being, that you're not a machine, you don't come to work and work in a silo, and you can, if there are riots on your drive to work, that you can't just put that out of your mind and come to work and be like, "Hi, can I help you today? Can I solve your problem?" If they we're just human out like that. So as much as, you may want humans to be machines and to block out everything else, life does impact them. And the way that you help them through it is acknowledging that there is something bigger than work going on, and maybe offering practical support. Can they work remotely if they
Yeah.
don't feel safe coming into work? Maybe they are a legal immigrant, but still don't feel safe. And I must tell you that many people who are US citizens, native US citizens, don't feel safe. So this is a
Mhm.
real thing that companies need to acknowledge. But there's many other issues, right? The world right now is full of big, heavy things. And you don't have to make a statement about absolutely everything that's going on, but you absolutely should be advocating for your people.
Yeah, definitely. It's, it's definitely about walking your talk, you know, pairing actions with words, and honestly, just being a responsible citizen. And I think you nailed it. Just acknowledging that this is going on because, I'm sure we've seen the social posts and I know I feel them. I go to the grocery store and then I see something horrific has happened. And then I write a press release about a great donation a client has made. And then I see something atrocious that's been released from those files. And just the dissonance that creates and truly the low hum exhaustion that that takes on your psyche and your soul, and I can't imagine that honestly, it's gotta be just a small percentage that that affects somehow, no matter and again, I hate to say this in the terms of where you stand politically because some of this is just like, "Really?" Um, but I think as corporate leaders, as professionals working with clients, we certainly need to look at this and, if either you sense something needing to happen within a client or just have the conversation of like, "Hey, how's everybody doing there? Do you need any ways to couch things? How can we help?" Honestly, at the end of the day, how can we help? And so what
Yeah.
does that mean for us as PR pros? And a lot of times Karen, you say it all the time, right? Mission, vision, values. It all goes back to that. If you've already established that, then you have that prism through which to work any situation. And it's just a matter of living up to those in word and deed.
Yeah. Isn't it amazing that in the face of so many changes, technologically, structurally, politically, economically, we live in a time where the basics really matter and they matter more. So, as PR pros,
Mhm.
we adhere to ethical principles. And again, as you said, we talk about your ethics really leading how you show up as a company and really living that out, not just having it be, pretty posters or, something that you put in your employee brochures, but really living it and holding yourself and everyone in your organization accountable to it, allowing feedback and correction around that. So, doing those basic things gets back to what's really important to every single company, and that's trust. If
Yeah.
people trust you, they will fight for you, whether they are your internal employees or your external publics. They will stand up for you when you are coming under attack. And being a trusted workplace means that you can attract the best of people
Yeah.
people that want to work there.
Yeah.
And it shows up, right? Externally.
Oh, totally.
I've been spending a lot of time over the past couple of years in hospital systems, and
Mhm.
I can walk into a facility and I know when the leadership is strong and when people
Mhm.
are happy because it
Mhm.
shows there's a brightness, there's a lightness, there's dedication to wanting to do their job when they're being treated well. What do you think that means? I think it means that people choose them because they see that. But I've also been in places where I think, please shut this place down, shut
Yeah.
it down hard, wipe it off at the face of the earth because this is terrible, rotten care. These people are miserable and something is not right here.
Yeah. And there is something it's not only special, but it's essential in that, right? When you create that workspace of we are here to help each other,
Yes.
and that gives your employees the autonomy to make those small decisions on behalf of your mission, right? Rather than saying, "Well, I need to check with my manager to see if I can get you this, that, or the other." It's, "Oh, you know what? I see this problem before you even come to me with it, and I'm gonna make a suggestion, and I'm also gonna help you make it happen." That is a huge difference, especially in our modern times where people feel disconnected and unheard and unseen. Those small acts can move mountains in someone's mind. And not, yeah, that's great for your bottom line, but gosh, it's so nice that you're also helping make our communities better places just by being good people and doing the right thing, doing right by each other.
Yeah. And I mean, you said something like we often cite Chewy, right, NPR as a
Mm,
great case example
yeah.
of customer service, and they actually empower their employees to make customers happy. So they have some budget that they can utilize towards doing extra things for customers. They've been
Mm,
empowered to do that. Imagine what happens, and I've seen this as well, where companies empower leaders to support their people. When your leaders don't have to work through a bunch of red tape to support an employee in need or support a community, that makes a huge difference. And you'll have much stronger leadership. You'll have a lot more retention with your employees. You'll have loyalty. You'll have hard workers because that's those are the residual effects when you do the right thing and you do it genuinely. You're not doing it because you want to get something out of it. You're doing it because you respect people and you build that trust. So
yeah,
now is the time, I think, not just to advocate and to decide whether or not to make a statement, but to really look at your infrastructure beyond communications and ensure that your infrastructure is strong and that you are set up to weather these times because they're not ending soon.
right.
And we continue to be faced with things that are complicated and that are highly charged for many people. I mean, I think about, the situation in the Middle East, and you have Jewish people that work for you, and you have Palestinians. That is an environment that is highly charged that needs to be navigated with care for both people's respect and humanity. So, can you make a big open statement supporting one side or the other? I would not advise that. But
No,
can you support your employees in a real, tangible way that acknowledges their very real feelings, challenges, and stress around the situation that's happening that may involve family members?
right,
You absolutely can do that.
right. It really comes down to making sure that every employee feels safe and that their dignity is remains intact. And I think that's and you can't stay silent on that stuff. You really can't. So it comes down to good management as well, how well you work with your people and realize that, yes, you go to work every day and your employees come in and you want them to make sure they're moving the company in an upswing, but we're not yet a robotic workforce. We're still people. And with with that, we bring a certain special mojo being humans, but it also brings friction at times and that's valid. So, you know, it's not easy to navigate, but it's essential. You really y- you need not ignore it because that will be trouble for you. But and I think if as long as companies are forthright, don't hide behind flowery speak, don't create, meaningless events in the face of trying to sugarcoat what might really be going on within. I think just real talk, your employees will respect you, your external audiences will respect you, and at the end of the day, you'll find it works in your favor rather than not. Don't be afraid.
Yeah, I agree. And as PR practitioners, it's always been our job to manage risk. I
Mhm.
like the term risk translator because
Ooh,
that's us. We look at situations and we have to translate, and then we have to provide guidance on how to handle that. And so we have to coach, brand leaders, and we have got to make sure that companies, before something happens, are really aligned with their principles,
yeah,
and that they have a decision framework that aligns with that. So
definitely.
I think, in all of this, once again, the role of the PR pro shines brightly for me. I'm always so proud to do this job, particularly when I look at colleagues and some of the different things that they have to manage and the things that they face in their roles internally, if they're in-house, or if they're like us and external consultants. We have a strong opportunity in these times to help, to shine the light
Mhm.
through it.
Yeah.
And in doing that, let's not forget, PR pros, that we also have to make sure that we're living by those same principles and that we are caring for ourselves so
Mm.
that our cup is full and that we are able to do our jobs with excellence, and that we are able to stay focused and be clear, operate with clarity, but you can't do that from an empty cup.
That's so, so true. So true. So, don't be afraid to step away from the gadgets for a few hours, even though, I don't know, here in the Northeast, it's still bizarrely, freakishly cold. I know it's winter, but the sun is shining. I can't tell you, every day that I wake up and the sun is out, I'm like, oh, thank God, at least we have the sun. Those little things, look for the glimmers.
Look for
Look
the
for those
glimmer.
glimmers. It's not like we are not, we're not in the emergency command center 24/7 of our lives and everyone else's, even though sometimes it feels that way. So you can step away and replenish. I love how I don't know who came up with this first, but if you've ever been in a chorus, the staggered breathing, or even if you've played in a concert band, practice the staggered breathing of your life. You take a break while someone else is blowing out that whole note.
I love that. I love that. That is such great advice, and,
Oh,
we hope that you guys got some insights from this, and, have some things that you're mulling over and thinking about, or, just got validation on what you're already doing, because our
yeah,
audience is pretty smart. So we trust
indeed.
we trust you to make great decisions, and hopefully you felt seen and heard today, because we want to care for you.
Yes, our solo smarties and even smarties who aren't solos. You are amazing. And we hope you found value in this time together today. If you did, please do share it around. And check us out at soloprpro.com. Join the conversation over there. And until next time, thanks for listening to That Solo Life.